so fluid. Whereas if I angle them like this...
That's the way I resolve it.
And here's the secret.
That's just me singing, really.
They invented the technique. So I woke up and my left arm was numb. And, you know, I thought I just slept on it funny or something like that, but it didn't get better. And it hurt whenever I played. And I could feel like my tendons were kind of all swollen. It turns out I developed tendonitis. From all those years of playing and shredding, it's finally taken its toll. And I could barely play. And that was 25 years ago. I was devastated, right? So I went to see all these kind of different kinds of doctors and therapists, and they were all working on me, and nothing seemed to help. So gradually, I had to learn how to play with a different technique so that it didn't hurt when I played. And this was really hard for me because, you know, I'd been taught to play, you know, in the classical way. You know, where you kind of play like this. When I was a kid, I played all the... Here's the thing though, correct guitar technique, even though it kind of originates in classical guitar, which is cool, but on classical guitar, you know, you play chords and you play arpeggios and you don't really bend the strings too much or you don't do these wide vibratos. It's very different, right? And even though when you look at all your guitar heroes, it actually looks like they've got bad technique from what you've probably been taught, but that just doesn't make any sense because those guys, they invented the technique. I mean, look at Clapton. Like, this is him playing when he was young.
Yeah, there are phrases that I always play that are stock phrases that I work from, you know, which are just like...
From a technical point of view, he's got his hand kind of bunched up here, he's got his thumb hanging over the neck, and he's using 3 fingers instead of 4, but it just sounds amazing, you know. And then, here's the thing, that's him playing when he's like in his early 20s, and here he is playing in his 80s. So after all those years, he's still playing, he's using the same kind of technique, so he must be doing something right, obviously. So let's break down what's going on. So the classical technique is you've got your hand at an angle like this, and then you've got your fingers kind of arched over. You play kind of like that. But if you look at players like Clapton, you know, look at him playing here. And into his solo. So fluid. So he's really flowing up and down the neck there. But if you look at his hands, and here's the secret, this is basically how I started to recover from my tendonitis, is instead of having his hands angled over this kind of weird angle like this, his hands are coming in like this. I mean, just look at this, for example. If I angle my hands like this, I can barely stretch to the plastic part of that pen, right? Whereas if I angle them like this, look at that. I can stretch right to the full size of the pen. So when you angle your hand, instead of like this, which is actually, I can feel it hurting as soon as I do that. When I angle my hand from this to this, it's much more ergonomic. So that's how I began to play. So if you just take your basic pentatonic scale, instead of playing it like this, which hurts, if you angle your hand like this ergonomically, so you're kind of coming in from the side like this, and your fingers are kind of flat. Bad technique, really, but good technique if you want to keep playing into your 80s. So that's how I play the pentatonic scales now, is I come in from this angle like this. And if you look at players like Stevie Ray Vaughan or Jimi Hendrix, they basically did the same thing. Like a lot of those players, they do use their pinky sometimes, but 90% of the time they're... You know, they're playing with just 3 fingers, right? So I'm going to show you 3 things to play without pain, right? So let's just kind of go through them. So the first one is this idea of use 3 fingers instead of 4 fingers. I'm not saying never use your pinky, but focusing on these 3 fingers, right? So you're going to angle your hands to get way more of that kind of stretch, and you're going to find that ergonomic position. And then if you look at me play the scale now like this, I'm starting on my third finger instead of my fourth finger. And I'm just going to go down like this. And then when I get to that stretch there, I'm just going to kind of jump. Or even better, the way that a lot of people, like Clapton himself here, if you watch him play, instead of doing these kind of like awkward stretches here, he'll just do this. Much better, and it doesn't hurt, right? So instead of going into this contortion here, you just slide into a different position. You'll hear him playing that lick a lot, you know. So the other thing is when you watch Clapton playing, he does this weird thing, and I've seen a few different players playing it. He kind of bunches his fingers together like this at this angle, and he'll actually combine these two fingers together like this, and it's kind of a strange thing. But, you know, it reminds me when I look at him playing. It almost reminds me of a slide player, the way he's kind of like sliding in like this shape. So a couple things. One, when you're doing that, you're actually, I'm going to talk about the thumb in a minute, but with this shape here, you're actually kind of like dragging your fingers along behind you. It's muting a lot of the strings, right? So you're actually reducing the sound of the adjacent strings by kind of like bunching your hand over there and using this position. The other thing is you're getting more strength, right? When you're using two fingers instead of one. You know, in fact, you're kind of using all three fingers. A lot of times when you're bending as well, you can actually drag this finger behind to kind of mute all those strings. So you get this. And then the other thing is, I think it just sounds better. When you bunch your hand together like this and go to this angle, the fingering, instead of being this very articulate kind of like, it gives more of this kind of like, maybe the sound is more fluid. Just because of the way your fingers are bunched together. So using two fingers instead of one. Now, I learned this from watching people like B.B. King and Robin Ford play as well. Like, check this out, this is Robin Ford. He's so cool. Look at the angle of his hand there. It's like B.B. King playing jazz. He does this thing, right, where he joins these two fingers together to get a little bit more strength. You know, you're coming in at an angle like this. Kind of doing this. So that's a way you can use your pinky but get more strength out of it. And it's kind of the similar idea to what Clapton's doing with these two fingers. So I'm not sure if it's a tone thing or it's an ergonomic thing, but, you know, it works for these guys. And it works for me as well. I mean, that's basically, I started, instead of playing like this, I started doing this coming in from the angle. And the pain was gone. Okay, so that's number one. Coming in at an angle, getting that ergonomic position, and then using three fingers, or sparingly using your pinky as well. I mean, B.B. King would use his pinky. Let's listen to him, but he would jump to his pinky.
That's the way I resolve it.
Okay, so the next thing is the moving thumb. So I'd always learned that the correct position of the thumb was like this, kind of in the back. But if you look at Clapton or Hendrix playing, they're using their thumb like this, but it's also moving with them. So rather than having one fixed position, the hand is like constantly kind of moving, and you're using the thumb to kind of mute some of these bass strings, but you're also using it to bend against. I mean, listen to Clapton playing this. This is so cool.
And it will be... It's just me singing, really.
So if you watch his thumb there, when he's doing that bend, his thumb's hooked right over, and he's bending up towards it like this. hooking your thumb over there, bending up with your third finger in the key of E, right? Bending up. So rather than having your thumb back here where you've got nothing to push against, you're just bringing your hands together here, and then you're using these fingers, you're using your second finger as well to reinforce that, and you're using your first finger to mute the strings. These two fingers are kind of muting, and then these two fingers are pushing. And then notice this, when he comes down and he does that vibrato, he brings his hand right down to this position, and then instead of using his wrist to vibrato, he's just rocking his whole arm back and forth. So that technique there, you're basically, you kind of lock your fingers in position like this against each other, and then you're rocking your arm back and forth like this, and you're using the weight of your arm to get that tremolo, which is really, it creates this really smooth, rich tremolo sound. It's almost like a whammy bar, because you've got this, rather than this kind of like thin little vibrato like that, you've got this big, heavy arm that's moving up and down to give that really smooth, rich, big vibrato sound. So there's three things. So one is come in at an angle. You'd be amazed by how much further you can stretch like this. The second thing is the thumb. Don't be afraid to hang it over the side like this. And then the third is with the vibrato. The thing is here, what you're doing is rather than locking your hand in one position, you're kind of ergonomically moving your thumb to where it supports. So you're going from a bend to a vibrato. So you're going from here to here, like that. And I think that actually moving your hand back and forth, it actually kind of relaxes and rests your arms as you're playing, rather than being locked in one position where you kind of start to freeze up. You've got this back and forth push and pull motion. And then the final thing I'd say is, when I was younger, I used to really like tense up a lot when I played. Like that, you know, I'd tense up a lot and I'd try really hard. But actually, the thing is, what you want to do is just relax. Relax your body, relax your hands, and just find that ergonomic position where it doesn't hurt. And just start to weave your licks around that. Alright, so hopefully this helps. It's not really medical advice, it's just kind of my story, but those things helped me a lot. Let me know what's helped you, and if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And also, I just released a new single, which is my version of Apache, which was really fun. I kind of tell the story of it on one of the other videos, where it's kind of like it's paying homage to the Shadow song Apache. And then it was cool because I actually went to Abbey Road Studios to kind of finish it off and do the final finishing touches on it. And it's on Spotify and on YouTube, so you can check it out. And we'll see you next time.